you're ranking really high on page 1 for various search terms in your niche, despite being double and even triple the price of your competitors, which I think is very impressive. And I think that alludes to the fact of how well you've done in establishing the value that comes from your product just from the main image.
Welcome to the Ecomm Breakthrough podcast. Are you ready to unlock the full potential and growth in your business? You've already crossed 7 figures in sales, but the challenge is knowing how to take your business to the next level. Join Josh Hadley, an 8-figure e-com business owner and investor, as he interviews highly successful business owners. Get ready, because you're going to learn specific actions you can take today to help your business reach its full potential and leave a lasting impact on the world.
Welcome to the Ecomm Breakthrough podcast. I'm your host, Josh Hadley, where I interview the top business leaders in e-commerce. Past guests include Kevin King, Michael E. Gerber, author of The E-Myth, and Matt Clark from ASM. Today, I am speaking with Bob Clapp. We just went through a strategy audit with him. He reached out. He wanted some insights for his own brand. We had met at a previous conference, and he has already taken some massive steps in his own business where he has been able to grow the velocity of his sales over 100%. And we have now laid out a game plan and a blueprint for how he can continue to scale his business. Today, he's going to be sharing his feedback, those actions that he's taken, and the levers that he's been pulling in order to dominate the market. This episode is brought to you by Ecomm Breakthrough Consulting, where I help 7-figure companies grow to 8 figures and beyond. Listen, Bob, I started my business back in 2015, and I grew it to an 8-figure brand in 7 years. But I made a lot of mistakes along the way that made the path of getting to 8 figures take a lot longer than it needed to. There were times where I made bad hiring decisions. I had to take money from my personal account in order to fund payroll because of cash flow constraints. And during COVID, our brand experienced a 90% decline in sales. And so I had to worry about whether our brand could actually survive. I remember wishing for a mentor who could help guide me through the maze of scaling up. Somebody who had been there, done that, and could share all the secrets to help me overcome those obstacles. That's why I've decided to offer one-on-one coaching and consulting, where I share the nitty-gritty cash flow frameworks, the sales strategies, and the operating systems that have helped me scale my own business. And because I believe in giving each entrepreneur my undivided attention, I only work with 3 clients at a time. But first, I want to make sure we're a perfect match, so I'm offering a completely free, no strings attached business strategy audit, which Bob just went through. And so to our fellow listeners, those of you who are interested, if that sounds like something you're up for, drop me an email at josh@ecommbreakthrough.com. That's ecom with 2 M's. And in your subject line, say, I want to pick your brain. And then let's chat about how we can take your brand to the next level. But without further ado, let's bring Bob onto the show. Bob, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Josh. It's a pleasure to be here, and I do appreciate your time.
Bob, we had a great conversation today. We dove deep into your brand, looking at the competitive landscape, talking about your manufacturer, your suppliers, and those that you're working with, and the actions you've already taken to increase your sales velocity and your organic ranking, and then your future plans of what you're going to do in order to continue to scale your business. So I'm interested to hear this first, Bob. How did you find out about the podcast to begin with? Were you able to adopt, any golden nuggets from any of those podcast episodes? And how did you scale your business up until this point before even jumping on this audit?
Let's see. We met at an eClimb summit in Austin, Texas, back in December, where you presented on how to hire employees or workers for you, which I found very interesting. And then we had a conversation regarding my business and my brand, and you had mentioned to me about adding product was the quickest, the biggest lever I could pull in order for the business to grow, which we have done. So that was really a breakthrough for us. In terms of your podcast, listening to all the guests, Brian Johnson or Adam Heist, and I think Nina was the other one.
Mina Elias.
Yeah, Nina. All little bits and pieces out of that I got. Mainly was looking at adding infographics to the listing, which I did, which seemed to help a lot. Testing the new titles as well, testing keywords in the title, putting keywords into the infographics, which I think really did help. What else we do? Yeah, that was kind of the biggest things we did, the biggest changes we made. Played around with the price a little bit, but it was more about just looking at optimizing the listing.
Yeah. No, I love that. And so let's boil that down for our listeners, Bob,
Sure.
so that they can take the similar actions. So one of the first things that you had talked about, we had Mina Elias and Brian Johnson on the podcast previously. Feel free to look up those episodes because they gave some awesome advice and tips and strategies for how you can optimize your main image. Okay. And so, Bob, one of the things that I think you took away from, I think it was Brian Johnson's episode, he talked about, like, for whatever reason, anytime we test like the color red, if it's not predominantly in a lot of the other competitor listings, if you can somehow figure out a way to incorporate red into your listing, it's going to make it pop and stand out on that listing. And sure enough, as we dove into your product listing, I saw that little like pop of red. You know, you would place like a flower. Does your product come with a flower? No, not necessarily.
It's not.
But you placed a flower to the side and it looks fantastic. And here's the most important thing that you did, Bob. As you look at all of the listings on page 1 for your product, everybody looks the same. Almost everybody looks the same. They all kind of have the same, bag that they're including as an accessory to their product. And it's always the product first and foremost, and then this bag sitting behind it. Everybody looks the same. Yours is completely different. You have a box sitting in the background. You have a little flower off to the side. You also have additional accessories that you're including in your package that other people don't as well. And so I love that you took action on that. And I'd be interested to hear, like, what were some of like the takeaways that you can remember from those podcast episodes that I guess inspired you to go and change your main image?
Well, I guess like you say about it was just testing the image, and what we'd done previously was we had just all I had was the one cremation urn with the 4 small ones around it, no background, no box in the background, and that was working to an extent. But especially when it was a white product on a white background, it became very difficult to stand out, and it did kind of just blur. It didn't stand out. And then I thought we need to incorporate the box. So we tried a different position for the box. Did include flowers in it, but it wasn't the right image. And then we went back and did it yet again. Again, after listening to the podcast and deciding to put a couple of red flowers or a red flower in there just to make it stand out, especially the white urn because of the fact it's on a white background. And then the blue box in the background, we had some difficulty in positioning it properly so that we could utilize the vertical rectangular format of the listing, especially for mobile. So that was a bit of a challenge, but and then we tested it against the previous ones, and it tested the best of the bunch. So
how did you test it? What tools did you use to test those images? Because it sounds like you iterated quite a bit. It wasn't, one night I woke up and this was the idea I had in my mind and bam, it worked magically. Sound like there were iterations.
Yeah, there was. I mean, it basically used the Amazon A/B testing for that, and also used PickFu as just a general idea between doing the images to see which one they preferred, and it was what we're currently using now.
Awesome. I love that. Bob, I love that it was incremental improvements all along the way.
Yes.
Right. And that's something I try to continue to reiterate on this show is that you should always be testing. And your main image is if there's anything you should be testing, it's either price or it's your main image. Okay. Because when you do that, those are your biggest levers. It's going to drive click-through rate and it's going to drive your conversion rate. The main image is going to drive your click-through rate. It's going to set you apart. It's basically the thing that says, hey, we're open for business. Come check us out. And then once you get onto our product detail page, it's my job to convert you. And you've done such a good job with that. And I know it's something that you've been focused on. And in return, you're ranking really high on page 1 for various search terms in your niche, despite being double and even triple the price of your competitors, which I think is very impressive. And I think that alludes to the fact of how well you've done in establishing the value that comes from your product just from the main image.
I appreciate that. That's very nice of you to say. We've tested a bunch of things, and this journey started 2 years ago. Then we bought I think 100 sets to sell, and we sold those in 5 weeks, and that was with the old image. So we knew we were kind of onto something, and then over the years, it's just been testing and testing and testing, testing title, testing keywords, keeping using brand search queries in order to see what were the current most search terms. There's not a lot of variation there, but there's some, and then incorporating those into the title, which helps obviously, and anywhere else we could put them in the bullet points as well. And then just making, like I say, just little adjustments along the way and seeing if it moved the needle at all. So,
I love that.
Still work to be done.
Yeah, there's always, and it will never end. You will always have to be testing.
Yeah, it's not a set and forget like some people think. So
yeah,
I think that's our advantage is compared to, I look at some of our competitors, and I've been keeping an eye on their titles and their keywords, and they rarely change. So.
See, when you actually focus on your business, you'll find out how lazy most competitors are, right?
Yes.
One of the core values that we have in our business is going the extra mile. Okay. We go the extra mile because we know that it is less crowded. And truly, most people are not willing to go the extra mile, right? We can talk all day long about main image optimizations and running consecutive price tests. But guess what? Most people think of Amazon businesses as. They think of them as these passive income stores. It's like, oh, you set it and forget it, and you're just printing money, right? Left and right. And I think that is such a falsity that all of these course creators have been pitching over the last few years of like, oh, get on Amazon for passive income. Amazon, in my opinion, is one of the least passive sources of income. And I'm actually happy if my competitors are the ones that are being passive and they think that this is a passive income business. I'm super happy they are, because I've got a team that's working day and night that's going to run circles around them. And it may not be apparent tomorrow, but 3 to 5 years from now, it'll be very apparent. And I think that's what makes all the difference.
I think you're right. It was something I saw on, I guess it was an Instagram post from Gary Vee that talked about the fact that passive income, there's nothing passive about it. You've got to keep working. There's, so I don't know about you, but I'm working hard to keep this thing going. And I think he's correct. There is a lot of work involved, and you do need to stay on top of it, and you need to monitor it, and if you want it to grow. So yeah, I think what I really enjoy about your podcast is it's more focused it's more positioned for people that have had some success on Amazon and want to get to that next level, so to speak. Offering all the guests you have, it's not necessarily about, they're talking about launching, it's about growing. And I think that's really missing in the market these days. All these so-called gurus and people that you see on YouTube are all pitching the ideas of these courses of launching product, and then that's it. But they don't talk about the growth. They don't talk about the cash flow issues. They don't talk about developing new products, optimizing the listing, and so forth. So I think that's what drew me to your podcast, and the guests that you have on there certainly reflect that.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate those kind words, Bob. No. I guess I'll have to ship you that check now for that testimonial. We jest. All right, Bob, I am interested to hear your thoughts on, we just had your strategy audit before we hit the record button here.
Yes.
And I know there are other sellers like yourself that are listening to this show. They do want to grow to the next level. And you are brave enough to reach out and say, hey, I'm interested in doing this strategy audit. So before we dive into the details of the strategy audit, I'll ask you this simple question first. Do you feel like this was worth your time reaching out, requesting the strategy audit and spending a few hours with me?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. It's been great. I mean, solidified some ideas I already had just to speak to someone that's already in the position I'd like to be at in terms of business wise. So that's it's and just to hear your thoughts on what I've done so far and getting the confirmation of what I've done is correct or it has worked. Has been really helpful. And then also just looking at how we can tweak it to get better in terms of financing, which you've pointed out a few ideas there, and also just where do we go from here? So what we've, as you mentioned in your podcast many times, is what got you here isn't going to get you there. And so that's kind of where I'm trying to focus. So what would be next for me? Well, would be introducing more product and just testing again, throwing up just more product and seeing how it works.
Yeah, I love that. So Bob, let's go into the details then of your strategy audit and tell me, what were some of the mindset shifts or kind of the breakthroughs that you had as we talk?
The breakthroughs probably would have been first off would be the financing that you offered the cash flow issues, talking about the use of credit cards and statement dates and taking those to your advantage. So you have, and so if your supplier isn't giving you good terms, at least you could get them with the credit cards, maybe 30 or 60 days, 90 days if you do it correctly. That's certainly an eye opener. With the others,
so let's double down on that real quick,
sure.
then, Bob.
Okay.
So let's talk about what we addressed, because I asked you, one of your constraints that you had or questions to begin with was like, hey, I want to launch new products, but I have limited amount of cash to continue to invest, and I've got to save some of that to reinvest in my existing products to purchase more inventory.
Yes.
But how do I fund the additional growth, and how do I forecast that? And I said, this all comes back to the number one source of financing for any Amazon business owner or any physical products e-commerce business owner is going to be your manufacturer, period. It's not the other, song and dance financing companies that you hear and they show up at all the conferences that ultimately have, APRs, interest rates that are almost 20%. That's not going to be your best asset, right? That's not going to be your best partner. Instead, what you want to leverage on is going to be your relationship with your manufacturer. And we also talked about how with some of our new manufacturers that we've negotiated with overseas is being able to get financing where, you're not paying a deposit up front. And then you've got 90, 120 days after the product ships before you need to pay that invoice. That's literally game changing, where you could start, selling that product, making money on it before you've ever paid for that product. That allows you and your manufacturer that you both grow together. And so I think that's a big mindset shift that a lot of sellers need to have, is that they see this like their manufacturer is like, oh, it's just the guy that I get my stuff from, right? And if it's not him, it'll be somebody else. You need to flip that script and you need to say, hey, who is this guy on the other side of the table, is guy or gal? And how do I partner with them? How do I show them that look, we are partners in this business together. You grow as I grow, you're going to grow as well. And I'm not going to leave you hanging, right? Like your ability to pay your bills on time. I cannot emphasize how important that becomes. You only got one chance. And as soon as you stop paying your bills, you have ruined that trust. And you're fighting an uphill battle in your business for a long, long time because of that. But what we talked about, Bob, was, can you get a 90-day, 120-day net term from your supplier after the product ships? If you can't, what can you do to just flip that a little bit more, where, instead of having to pay a 50% upfront and then a 50% final payment 30 days after it ships, what can you do to push that out to 60 days after it ships? Or can you do a 20% down payment and then 80% later and push that to even 60 days? Any of those are going to make a massive difference for you. And then we did wrap things up by saying, hey, worst case scenario, let's say your manufacturer is not willing to budge whatsoever. Okay. There's a couple things that you could do. If you have to send them ACH payments or wire transfers, okay, you can use services such as Plastique or Melio, I believe they are, okay, which basically will send those wire transfers to your supplier or your manufacturer for you. And then you are able to then pay Plastique with a credit card, okay, for that exact same payment. Now, that does come with a fee, but it's only 2.9%. And there's a lot of credit cards out there. There's like the Chase Inc. Preferred card that gives you 2.5% cash back on any purchase over $5,000. We also talked about utilizing the Amex Plum card, which is probably one of my favorites. Now, you're not going to get really any cash back points on this, but it has a 60-day payback period, okay? So no interest, it's 60 days for you to pay that bill. And so we talked about this. Open up multiple credit cards and make sure you stagger them as you're opening them up so that theoretically you have a credit card statement that starts on the first of the month, another one that starts theoretically on the 8th, another one that starts on the 16th, another one that starts on the 22nd, etc., right? And then the trick is this. You're constantly cycling through your credit cards and you charge that card at the very beginning of its new statement date, okay? Because in the example of the Amex Plum card, if my credit card starts, the statement date starts on the 16th of every month, charge it on the 16th, and then don't make any additional charges. Maybe you can that first week, but if you don't make any additional charges after that first week, you now effectively have 90 days of cash flow because you've got 30 more days until the statement closes. Then you've got 60 days after that statement closes. And so you can see how game-changing that can be. And you can follow that similar strategy for your Amazon advertising, etc. So, Bob, is that a pretty good summary? Anything else that you kind of gleaned from that?
Mainly it was what you talked about earlier about the building a relationship with the supplier. I have a very good relationship with him. I talk to him probably do FaceTime with him probably once a week, if not more. When we talk about future growth, he's encouraging me to grow and ordering larger numbers and creating a stockpile that he would actually hold on to, and then we would take them from that. That's what he would like to create for us. So yes, we've had I do agree, or would recommend you build a solid relationship. Much what you had said in your interview with Ben Leonard when he actually went overseas to the supplier and got a face-to-face and built that relationship. You can do that, obviously, but I think you can probably still do it with some FaceTime and just taking some time to get to know these people and what they're and who they are. And I think that's what's difficult in this e-com business is you don't get much face-to-face. You're at home in your own office taking care of your business, but rarely do you get to talk to anybody. So I would encourage people to reach out and make that effort to do that.
Yeah, love that. I think you summed that up really, really well and creating that true partnership and letting them know it's much more than just business, getting to know their family, their hobbies, their interests, etc.
Yeah, and then that's not coming from a position of just trying to get something out of them. It's from actual, you want to do business with these people and you want to know about them, right? And so that's what it is. So
I love that. All right, Bob, what else did you glean? What were some other breakthroughs or mindset shifts?
Was the other one was looking for, you said to look for other manufacturers, maybe US-based manufacturers. Our manufacturer is currently in India, so there's always that shipping delay. And just this has been pointed out to me before about our business was the fact that we're totally reliant on the one supplier, and we do need to expand to make sure that if something were to happen, that our business doesn't go down as well. So
Yeah.
that's something I'm going to be looking into for sure. I have already found another supplier in India who we are looking to doing some business with, but that's still in the early stages. So
Yeah. No, I agree. And with our business, one of our core competitive advantages is that we have manufacturing here in the US. And I have worked with our existing manufacturer. We're almost going on 10 years at this point. I think it's been 9 years. And they are the backbone of our business. And because we have such a long relationship with them, we've never missed a payment. And we've just built a good rapport over the years. When I go out of stock on a product, they're going to rush that product out the door, right? And I've got it back in stock within the next week, right? And so a lot of my competitors that are sourcing their products overseas, like they're going to get crushed when they go out of stock and they lose their organic ranking. Like they're fighting an uphill battle. And so in addition to being able to launch products more quickly, being able to purchase relatively low MOQs to start to see which type of products are going to do well, and then being able to double down on those. It really, I guess we cannot emphasize enough that relationship with your manufacturer or your supplier, because even negotiating MOQs, can you get it lower to begin with so that it allows you to test and not have to put all of your chips on the table and say like, oh, great, I got to order 1,000 of these just to test the market. Like, man, that's a big, bold test. Whereas what if you could test only 100 units, right? And if they sell through, great, reorder and get them replenished as soon as possible. So I think that is a great takeaway that you highlighted there,
that's
Bob.
how we started. We ordered just 100 units to begin with, and then we found that they sold out within 5 weeks. And unfortunately, we didn't put in an order quick enough, so the delay was a bit longer than we'd like. So we were out of stock for about 3 weeks, I guess. But knowing that the product worked in what we sell, that it wasn't something that people new customers would be coming into the fold all the time. So that would we knew it was going to work.
Yeah,
so
I love that.
So it was just a matter of trying to expand it and make it better, and make sure that we didn't have those gaps in the inventory. So
100%. Bob, what else? These are some great insights.
The other one would be the shipping that we discussed. Talk about looking at a different shipping company. We currently use one that ships to the East Coast, which offers a good rate, and they're third-party logistics, so they ship into Amazon for us. But we're looking for another one. So there's a company called Tactical Logistics we're in negotiations with to be maybe have a supply on the West Coast as opposed to the East Coast where they currently are. Their shipping rates to LA were cheaper than I anticipated, so it's something we're going to probably go forward with in the near future. And also, you had mentioned to look into AWD as well. That would be the next thing. I have not looked into that yet, but that's something we will be exploring for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Like, here's what's going to be the game changer on Amazon over the next 3 to 5 years. Everybody's always trying to predict what's going to happen on Amazon 3 to 5 years from now, right? Here's what we can know for sure is not going to change on Amazon over the next 3 to 5 years. Are FBA fees going to decrease? Are they going to let up and say, guys, no more inbound placement fees, just do whatever you want. We're going back to the good old days of 2015. We've got your back. Is Amazon going to do that? Heck no, they're not. They are going to be making sure like you've got to be perfect with your inventory. We don't want too much at FBA. We don't want too little at FBA. And so your supply chain is a massive lever for success in this business. Abe Shamali posted a LinkedIn article that said, with these new inventory placement fees and the low inventory fee, et cetera, he's like, the people that don't know their fees and their supply chain, they're going to continue operating over the next 6 months thinking that things are okay. And then they're going to wake up with very little money in their bank account and be like, wait, what just happened? Why am I like losing money figuratively? And you're going to have people that just start dropping their prices and trying to get out of the market. And so it's going to be a storm that needs to be weathered over the next, I would argue, 12 to 18 months. And only the best will survive. And so making sure that you have a good supply chain like prowess, and also that you've set things up properly is going to make all the difference, because the people that don't and continue operating their business the same way that they were doing it back in 2020, 2021, the game has changed and it will continue to evolve on Amazon, and you're going to be beat, and you're going to lose a lot of margin at the same time.
I saw the same article, and you're right. It's changing. And again, going back to what we talked about, it's not passive income. It's a business, and you've got to pay attention to the business, and especially what the changes that are happening. And there is quite a few with Amazon. It's not it's not the easiest thing to navigate through, and especially that's the most difficult part I found in the whole thing. For me, I didn't have a very extensive computer background, so to speak. And then I started my business just prior to COVID, and I used to work in the film industry as a carpenter. And there was because of COVID, all the film production here in Vancouver was shut down. So I had the time to spend on learning the Amazon platform. And that's one thing I've noticed lately is all the changes that are coming. And you need to kind of be able to figure out what's going on and how you can benefit from it, or how it's going to affect your business, really.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. Any other takeaways, Bob, from the strategy audit?
More or less, nothing I can think of, actually. It was more, you covered it in terms of looking at my listing and telling me that I was doing things correct. That what I was presenting was optimized, and that I was, and the fact that confirming that all the testing I was doing through imagery, title, keywords in certain places, A+ content creation, that I was doing a good job at that. So I appreciated that.
Awesome. Well, Bob, it's been a pleasure diving into your business, and I hope that our listeners have been able to take away some of the golden nuggets that you have shared today of the different levers that you've pulled in your business that have already helped you grow your sales, that are helping you become more financially fit and bringing in more revenue for the business, and thus becoming more profitable at the same time. So as we wrap things up here, Bob, here are the 3 actionable takeaways that I noted from your strategy audit. You let me know if you think I'm missing something here.
Sure.
But number 1, we're going to go all the way back to launching new products, right? That was the first thing I told you when we met a few months ago. And you've already started taking action there. But yes. I remember my conversation was initially, hey, you can go into like related product categories and launch new products. When we dove into your strategy audit, I started to look, and on page 1, you're seeing a lot of different types of products for your niche. And so because of that, you're able to go essentially like compete against yourself over and over and over again. And that is one of the most powerful things you can do, is like constantly trying to cannibalize almost your own sales. But as you do that, you're going to take a bigger share of the market, because if you don't disrupt yourself, your competitors are going to do that. And so I think that was one of the enlightening things that I saw for you, is like, keep going down this path, come out with different designs. You talked about an engineer that you met that's already modeled up some different designs for you, and then testing those out, right? Because that is going to be the thing that will move the needle the biggest for you. So that's action item number 1.
Yep.
Action item number 2 is you already have a good relationship with your supplier, but being willing to push the envelope a little bit more, okay? And that means going to them and having those difficult conversations, because you're going to have to ask for a lot, but you've got to articulate to them how your business is going to grow. You need to build in some, financial projections for them to say like, guys, if we can do this, my business is going to 10x. Okay. But I'm only going to get to that 10x growth if these other things fall in place. I'm not having to pay for inventory up front, and I can start paying for inventory after I start selling it on Amazon. That's where, you need to take those relationship conversations to the next level, essentially, and paint those pictures for people. So that's action item number 2. And then action item number 3, I'm going to say just focusing on your cash flow optimization. I feel like so many businesses run out of money too quickly, and they're not optimizing things as they should. Credit cards are your best friend. Not that you shouldn't be paying them back. You need to make sure you're paying your credit cards back every single month. But there is a very, very smart way that you can be treating these credit cards. And we talked about, make sure you have all of the cards that have the best rewards. We talked about the Chase Inc. preferred card, which will give you 2.5% cash back on anything greater than $5,000 in spend on that one transaction. We talked about the Amex Gold cards that will allow you to get 4x your ad spend. There's the Chase Inc. that gives you 3x on ad spend, and not just relying on one card alone. Okay? Don't rely on one card alone. Open up multiple cards. If you have a spouse or a significant other or family member in your business, have them open up other cards as well, the exact same cards. Okay? And then have statement dates that start at different times, and then constantly cycling through those, because even a credit card with a standard 30-day payback period can easily become 60 days if you have multiple cards to rotate through, and then you're only charging it at the beginning of the statement period. So, Bob, that's what I got for our listeners.
Yep.
Anything else that you feel like I missed that you feel like is an action item for our listeners?
No, I think you've covered it.
Awesome. All right. Well, now I get to ask you the 3 questions I ask every guest, which is number 1, what's been the most influential book that you've read and why?
Would be Ben Leonard's new book. I just finished that. And again, it was, I can't remember the title off the top of my head. What was it here? No, I thought I had it here. Quit Stalling. That's it. Quit Stalling and Build Your Brand. That's the name of the book. And in it came along at the right time, just when I was asking myself those same questions of how to grow the business. Again, as we talked about before, a lot of these gurus on YouTube and that talk about launching product. They don't talk about, now you've got something successful, how you can make it better. And that book's been very helpful. Yeah,
I love that. It's a great recommendation. We had Ben Leonard on the podcast, so go back in time, go listen to his episode. He dropped some great wisdom on the episode.
He certainly does.
And it's a great book as well. All right. Question number 2. What's been your favorite productivity or new software tool that you've recently discovered that you think is a game changer?
I would say it's Helium 10 is what I've been using from the start. And I've tried some others and just don't see it. They all offer the same type of thing, but Helium 10 has been, I think, the most accurate and offers exactly the information that I would like to see. So that's been really good.
Fantastic. Always a good tool.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. Who is somebody that you admire or respect the most in the e-commerce space that others should be following, and why?
Other than yourself, it would be Adam Heist or Adam Rehnquist. I learned a lot of stuff from him through his YouTube channel early on. One of his was the how to analyze keywords. There was a great YouTube video on a certain method he uses on using Google Sheets to break down keywords and in comparison to your competition of what they're ranking for, what you rank for. It's a fabulous, a really good video, and it certainly uncovers some gems you might not have thought of. So, but he's a wealth of knowledge.
Yes, he is. And he's also been on the show as well. Continuously drops some great knowledge. So that's an excellent person to follow.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on the show. Thanks for being a listener of the podcast. Thanks for reaching out to have the strategy audit. And as a reminder to our listeners, if you're interested in having a strategy audit, just like Bob had, reach out to me at josh@ecommbreakthrough.com. And you could be in the hot seat just like Bob here and learn a few things or two. So, Bob, thanks again for your time.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to dig into the business here and to help confirm some things that I thought were working, and also to point out some things that I could get better at. So thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. Visit ecommbreakthrough.com for more information. If you've enjoyed today's episode, the best way you can show your appreciation is by clicking the subscribe button and quickly leaving a review. See you again next time.